I'd like to call our meeting of the Greensburg City Council to order and invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Krista.
Father, we thank you for this new day, this new week, and the early start of a new month, where we just stop and pause, recognizing all of us have had busy days and have had responsibilities and to-do lists, and we just take a few moments and pause before jumping into the next item, and we recognize you. Lord, we ask that you would guide us and direct us. Give us your wisdom. May we not do things according to our understanding, but Lord, as we stop and acknowledge you, Lord, we desire for your ways to be made straight before us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pastor Krista, would you please express to the Ministerial Alliance on behalf of the city how moving the church service was yesterday, the community church service, to get everybody together.
Absolutely.
Please express to all the pastors
Absolutely.
how great that was. Thank you. Councilman Butler is called and he'll be a little late, but we have a quorum, 4 present. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Council?
None that I know of.
Not that I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. In recognition of the citizens of Greensburg, Kansas for their fine example of leadership, hospitality, and resilience, Girl Scouts Go Greensburg 100th year anniversary event, April 28th, 2012. Girl Scouts of Kansas Heartland. And this was made by a local artist. You might know where that came from. Scott Redick, Studio 54. I accept that in honor and on behalf of all of you, Citizens of Greensburg Youth Council, and this will be hung in prominent display in the foyer here in City Hall, so all the citizens will be able to see it. The Girl Scouts did a tremendous planning job, tremendous cleanup. I can't say enough of the organization and the local people that were actively involved in that to make it happen. So that was a fine event. This last weekend was a great event with a lot of work by a lot of people in this community. And if you start down the list, just a lot of people put in a lot of effort, and just thanks to all of them from myself. And I know the council echoes the same sentiment. What a great family reunion type atmosphere all weekend. Getting to see people that we haven't seen for several years and some that we just saw the day before, but it was great. Thank you all. Council member reports. City Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report back to council that
City Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report back to council that
City Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report back to council that
City Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report.
City Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. With the safety of our city employees, et cetera, without having to pay out any insurance claims, this was our share of $1,002,489. So our share of that return was $4,229.72. Mr. Mike Waller, our Lochner representative, our airport manager, has informed me that he sent in our FAA Form 7480. He's completed that form and sent it in to the FAA to have an airspace study conducted to determine that the airspace would be clear for our airport project. So I wanted to report back on that. He's also telling me that he's anticipating July as a substantial completion date on the airport project for their documentation and for their procedures. On May 3rd, a Thursday, we had a meeting here in the city building with KDOT representatives and with PEC representatives over, and the point of discussion was well number 8 at Davis Park. Well number 8, I guess KDOT wasn't significantly aware that that was a well building, a municipal well. In discussions with them, they thought that that building may have been a snack bar or something. So when it was declared that it was a well, it created a lot of interest in finding a new home for that. They want to clear that right of way. So that hasn't been addressed to any large degree up until now, but it's, as I had briefed council before, with the right-of-way concerns with Davis Park, with the need to move all of the playground equipment and the pool and the ball fields, well number 8 is now in that category and KDOT is aware of it. So they're going to be working with us to get that moved. I wanted to brief the council on an initiative that I've begun through working with Postal Presort. This document is an analysis sheet that I've asked Ms. Pam Reeves, our treasurer, to complete. Our city electric bills that we fill out on those cards and mail out to our customers, the average cost through averaging that out is about 73 cents per copy when we send that out. That's our charge for that billing process. This company known as Postal Presort, who has many county and municipal customers, their cost per piece is 58 cents. The format changes to a standard envelope that they mail our electric bills out, and there's several formats that we can use. As a one-page sheet that has a perforated tear-off, but this provides much more information to the customers, and there's also a section in the center where we can have a lot of free text to pass on information about upcoming community events. My decision at this point, and I wanted to discuss this with council, is that with the cost being reduced, the fact that there is no contract for working with Postal Presort, we can use their service for 6 months as a trial basis. If for any reason we don't like it, we can go back to doing what we're doing now. But they receive our billing information and they conduct the mail-outs for us that I think we'll find is a much better format for being able to include, if nothing else, additional information on community events and reminders to our customers. If the council has any questions or problems with that, I'd be more than glad to ask the representative to come down here and give you a more in-depth brief on that. But as I say, it's not a contractual requirement, which would obviously require council's approval on that. So if you have any questions about that, I'd visit with you about it. A reminder that in your council pack there is a thank you letter. I visited with staff, and I believe it's important to not only pass on information to council about some of the minutia of day-to-day operations, but also to give council the same information we receive when it's a nice thank you. We've assisted with the After Prom program, and they're extending their thank yous to the city of Greensburg. I've received just today an invitation from Dodge City, or Christy did, informing us that Dodge City is hosting an oil and gas symposium on June 19th from 8 to 5. And they're bringing in several speakers from the area that have already experienced the effects of an oil and gas boom. And they want to pass on best practices, problems that they've observed. But they're inviting mayors, council, clerks, public safety officials, public works, etc., in the hopes that what they've already experienced and overcome as problems or identified problems, that we can learn from those experiences. So passing it on, that council is invited to that as well. And that's all I have.
Questions or comments for Administrator? Thank you, Ed. I forgot to welcome everybody. Thank you. A lot goes on, and sometimes things move pretty fast and things move pretty slow, but glad you're here. Before we go to public comment section, I would like to move the Minister of the Oath up. So before we take any action, we officially have 2 council members oath administered. The Deputy Clerk, Christy, will administer those oaths to Mark and Sandy and myself. Do you want to do those separate or together?
We'll just do them together, if you don't mind. If you guys
We're
wanna-
supposed to do this.
Yeah, get your right hand.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Repeat after me. I, and state your name, do solemnly affirm
Just solemnly affirm.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully, impartially,
faithfully and impartially,
and to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
discharge the duties of City Council,
Discharge the duties of City Council.
City of Greensburg.
City of Greensburg.
And I've got
Those for you to sign. And the certificate.
I know we got out of order there, but in order to be reflected in the minutes properly, we need it.
that.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Christie.
Thank you, Christy. This time, public comment section of our meeting. Would anyone like to address the council?
On behalf of the Tourism Committee, I'd like to thank council for their support of last weekend's event. I think it was very successful, and we had a lot of people here in town, and I think the downtown businesses and other vendors did very well over the weekend, so I think it was a big success. I'd also like to publicly thank our city staff. They worked very hard to help prepare the concert area and other places around town, and it was a little outside of their day-to-day tasks, and we really appreciate the work they did to get us ready. So.
Other public comments? Council, the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 16, 2012 meeting, appropriations ordinance 1871, and application for a business license from Stoll Law Office.
It scares me a little bit on that.
That means we don't have to have any windshield time anymore, right?
Any additions or corrections to the minutes, questions on the appropriations ordinance or the business license?
I would make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On into our business items. Council's first meeting of May, and as per statute requirement to elect a president of your city council to represent you council members as president. So I open the floor for nominations for president and council.
I nominate Mark Turmel.
Second.
When's Rex gonna be?
Oh, wait, that's a good point. He's not here to defend himself.
I have a motion and a second. Mark Trumbull's name's been nominated as president of the council. Is there any other nominations? All those in favor of Mark, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Mark, congratulations. You've done us a fine job over the
Thank
last
you.
several years that you've been
Well,
president of the council. And
I appreciate your,
this council has a lot of faith in you too on that. Thank you. We need to consider the final appointment to the Public Building Commission. So I'll go ahead and open that up for nominations for appointment or discussion, or however you would like to go on that. You have Ed's notes on that.
we have two candidates, correct?
Two that have shown interest is my understanding, correct? Staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And willingness to serve. The names that were brought to the administrator.
I would move that we appoint Roberta Stouth to the PBC.
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Roberta. We have a full PBC now, correct? Item D is what we tabled 3 meetings ago for a little further clarification and information at that time on the Lochner development of their airspace drawings, and Ed just talked about that. Ed, would you like to share?
Yes, some of the reasoning behind tabling that, I believe, was we hadn't closed on the purchase of the land. There was still a lot of questions remaining on nailing that property down for the potential airport site. That's all been handled. I think this is an important step as we move closer to that July timeframe that Lochner's told us that their plan is to have substantial completion on their plan. This is an important part of that plan to clarify the airspace requirements in relation to the airport project.
And it is well within the KDOT grant.
Yes.
This won't be over and above. This is still within that KDOT grant for the development agreement.
This is the final amount?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the final number on that was the 72.7. And the KDOT grant was 84.
I would make a motion that we approve the supplemental agreement with Lochner for development of airspace drawings for the airport.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next on our agenda, it follows up with an airport discussion that Lochner had a question about. Ed, I will turn that over to you, please.
In speaking to Mike Waller, our airport project manager, he's asking us for required paperwork that he's working on, what we wanted to do with the name of the airport. We're going to leave it the same. Do we want to change it at this time? I told him I didn't know. As you'll remember, of course, for a very long time, our airport has been named the Greensburg Paul Wendell Airport. That's the name that's currently on any paperwork that Lochner's working on. Only 2 other suggestions come to mind, and that's to leave it as simply a Greensburg Municipal Airport, or a name suggested by Mrs. Rice, who worked with us on selling us the land, and the historical name of the landowners who first settled in that area are her family members and her husband's family members. At this time, I would make a suggestion that through ease of working with Lochner and Mr. Waller, it would be simpler and more expedient to leave the name as it's been in the past, which, as I understand, being fairly new to the area, is a well-known veteran from this area, Paul Wendell. There was a lot of work that went into that original naming process. We have an acceptable name, unless the council has some other suggestion.
Well, isn't that what's on the bronze plaque out at the airport, on that concrete?
That's right, that's right. And we've looked today, and I think that plaque is missing. I've asked some city staff, Mike Hayes, Mick Kendall, if they have any inside information about where this Paul Wendell plaque is located, and we just don't know. At this time, we're hoping that it's been taken by an interested party just for safekeeping, and it will be found. But right now, that plaque is missing.
Well, I just know on that plaque it had a Paul Wendell story on it or something. So, if we can find that plaque,
that'd be a good thing to find. So,
I don't think the wind pulled the bolts out and took it away.
And a request to the public, if any information can be forthcoming, would be to please contact my office to see if we can locate the plaque.
So, open that up, council, for discussion.
I think continuing on with the name that we had before would be perfect for it.
Sounds good to me.
That's fine.
I'm seeing everybody shake their head.
Okay.
To stay with what it's always been.
We can leave the name as is.
Well, that way the paperwork through FAA that they've had all along, it's all the same.
Right. That makes it simpler for our airport project.
Yeah. Do we need would you like official action on that, since we're not changing anything? Just the consensus I hear from council, stay what it is. Okay, Ed, item F.
I've been in contact with representatives from the Sheriff's Department who are inquiring as to whether we had an ordinance allowing for the operation of special purpose vehicles on our roadways. And special purpose vehicles are golf carts, micro utility vehicles, worksite utility vehicles, and ATVs. I've included in the council's packet the printout from the statutes which allow for no legal operation on the roadways in Kansas unless a municipal ordinance grants that right. And that's the state's given us the ability as a municipality and all municipalities across Kansas to make that decision for themselves. I've personally worked on the city's ordinance in 2009 in Sterling that allowed for the operation of certain special purpose vehicles on the roadway. I've obtained copies, well, I don't want to take credit for that. Christie did a lot of work to reach out to municipalities to see what they do for these special purpose vehicles. And they're kind of all over the board as to what they allow and what the equipment requirements are on those special purpose vehicles. The ordinance that I assisted in writing, for example, specifically said we don't want ATVs on the roadway, but we'll let the other big three, the golf carts, the micro utility vehicles, and the worksite utility vehicles. Now, I have a belief that all-terrain vehicles, the three-wheelers, the four-wheelers, are much smaller than these other types of special purpose vehicles, and therefore they're more dangerous. And that would be the primary guidance I would give to council. The initiative here is that our Sheriff's Department is asking. We don't have an ordinance in keeping with the 2009 statute that allows it. We do have, however, an ordinance that says we can operate these things if you have a license. Our ordinance doesn't meet what the state, in my opinion, tells us we have to meet. And quite frankly, an ordinance written in 2007 And the state changing certain requirements in 2009, just simply by the date, says that ours wouldn't meet the requirements of the state statute. So at this point, I'm asking for council's guidance on what types of special purpose vehicles they would allow, if any, to be on the roadway in Greensburg, and then simply directing the city administrator and city attorney to bring something back to council.
So if we did approve these special vehicles, they still wouldn't be able to cross the highway, correct?
They can cross the highway, they can cross any state highway in any location council would approve. They just can't travel along the highway, which we've had golf carts and other types of small special vehicles crossing before. I think it's somewhat more dangerous if you're away from the traffic light. But at a minimum, our ordinance, if it were to be approved by council eventually, would provide that in order to operate these vehicles, you have to have a Kansas driver's license to meet the state's requirement to operate these on the roadway. So at least you've said, okay, operator, you can't operate this thing unless you have a valid license, which indicates that this person has had some training to drive a vehicle. And if they choose to cross at Sycamore to go over to the north side of the highway, at least they're a licensed operator and they can, in theory, move more safely than a 15-year-old golf cart driver.
In addition to the license requirements, which obviously I think are a good idea, can we also require the vehicles, these special purpose vehicles, to carry some form of insurance as well, liability, in case they are involved in some sort of incident?
Yes. And I think from memory that's failing me right now, I'm not sure if the state's requiring that, but our municipal ordinance certainly could. And it's very common through the examples that I've seen from other municipalities. As well, and the primary area that I'm seeing a difference in from municipality to municipality is the equipment requirements on golf carts, special purpose vehicles and things of that nature, the micro utility vehicles. And I don't want to name these cities, but the copies of the ordinances that I'm seeing from 3 of the cities that I've obtained, they don't address equipment requirements at all. The state statute, however, says that if we meet the equipment requirements from 49 CFR, and then I'm not going to remember which specific page is past that, but it breaks out and says you have to have certain safety equipment like a windshield, turn signals, brake lights. And that's all that the Kansas statute says. If you meet the requirement of 49 CFR, you're considered as meeting the safety requirements for the equipment required in the state of Kansas. So the ordinance would address safety equipment. It would address the need for a Kansas driver's license. It would address the insurance requirements. It would address anything the council specifically wanted to address that may be peculiar to our area. For example, if the council wanted to decide special purpose vehicles can only cross the roadway at the traffic light, then we could certainly put that in our ordinance. I'm not suggesting that. I think a 35-year-old driver should be able to move safely and determine whether traffic is east and west that would be a hazard for them to cross. Golf carts can't be operated from sunset to sunrise, even though lights are required on the golf cart by 49 CFR, a federal requirement for equipment.
Are these vehicles required to be registered?
Yes. Not by state statute. I would suggest that we as a municipality require them to be registered so that we have an understanding of what special purpose vehicles are operating in town. My problem with any of this process, Mr. Mayor and Council, is that with no police presence in Greensburg, we have an ordinance that can't be enforced by our municipality. However, with the Sheriff's Department's interest in seeing that we are going to have these carts on the road only with an ordinance, if they stop one of these drivers for any reason, then they can't write them for a violation of state statute, simply because we have an ordinance. If we're trying to control the equipment requirements on a golf cart, requiring turn signals, and these aftermarket items can be purchased as a kit for probably about $240 or less. If the Sheriff's Department works a vehicle accident in which one of these carts are struck by a vehicle, the driver of the special purpose vehicle, in theory, can be written a myriad of citations for not having required equipment on there. So if we control it, we control whether the drivers are going to, of these special purpose vehicles, will end up with many, many citations, or whether it's simply one for maybe driving in an unsafe manner.
So you're saying with this ordinance here, would allow a golf cart to be on the street if it has a licensed driver behind the wheel, correct?
Yes.
And lighting.
And lighting.
Brakes and turn signals, headlights, whatever.
Right.
Okay. I agree with that.
And this would require also for council to set a registration fee, whether that's a $15 annual fee or $20, which are amounts that I'm seeing from other cities. It would offset the cost of ordering licensing materials. We would issue them some type of a license plate, a tag saying that they're registered in calendar year 2013 by the city of Greensburg. A benefit to that is if someone steals their golf cart, we have their vehicle identification number on file, which if they can't duplicate that from their residence, we certainly have, we can help them put that vehicle identification number into the national computer as a stolen item.
Only if they wish to use it on the city streets is all.
Right.
If not, if they want to leave it at the golf course and leave it in the shed.
That's right.
And use it out there solely, forget it, right?
Yes.
Ed, do you know what constitutes a slow-moving vehicle sign as far as what vehicle is required to have a slow-moving vehicle sign on it?
Any of the vehicles that the state is saying that can be registered on our roads as a slow-moving vehicle, a special purpose vehicle, our ordinance would in fact say that they can only operate on streets with a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone or lower. And the equipment descriptions for each one of these talk about their wheelbase length and the width of the vehicle, and these are the types of vehicles that are designated as slow-moving vehicles. Now, I don't have the answer right now as to whether we would require that slow-moving vehicle sign on the back of an ATV if council were to approve that, but the other ones do have to have a slow-moving vehicle sign.
But that would not take the place of lights or whatever.
Right.
I have seen ATVs go over 30 miles an hour.
I believe they can.
The other question I had, if I understood right from you, the sheriff came, or the sheriff's department came and visited with you about their concerns about this, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and that's based on the knowledge that we were going to have the Girl Scouts in town, and we were going to have the BTI slow-moving vehicles. The Girl Scouts purchased one of those for their visit with us here. Different types of these slow-moving vehicles. The sheriff's concern was the increase in foot traffic, the increase in vehicle traffic. These created a hazard on the roadway. He wanted to make sure that we were licensed or in accordance with state statute when we're allowing these on the roadway, and we're not. We can include in the ordinance, for example, that during special events in areas that are barricaded, these special purpose vehicles can operate even though they're not registered with the city. A parade, for example, is a great example of that. People are going to bring out all kinds of slow-moving vehicles during parades, and council can approve that as well.
Was there any indication if they were going to speak to the other communities in the county about type of ordinance or anything, or maybe they already have one that we aren't aware of?
Well, the sheriff wasn't concerned about other communities. He didn't speak to me at length about those, so I'm not sure what his activity is in the other communities.
I'm just curious.
I know that he's spoken to me, and as the administrator here, I'm concerned that if we don't take any action, some of our folks are driving them to the exclusion of all other vehicles. And one of our golf cart drivers has been contacted by a sheriff's deputy who told her that he would write her a ticket next time he saw her driving a golf cart. I think it's important for many reasons that the council consider an ordinance of this fashion, of this type. One of the key reasons is we're a sustainable community. I think the use of an electric golf cart is in good keeping with our desire to be a sustainable community, to reduce greenhouse gases. A golf cart is a good tool towards that end.
Well, I like the idea. There's all sorts of fun electric vehicles out there, and I can certainly see that possibly even becoming a business for someone. Now, would there be any issues with renting out vehicles of that sort? Or would it have to be individually owned?
It's an excellent point. I hadn't considered that, but I'm much like a bicycle rental shop. I think if a business wanted to rent out golf carts, I think each one of those carts operated by that business should be registered with the city for many reasons. It provides uniformity. We're requiring the individual owner to register. I think the shop would need to do that as well. It's a great idea that someone can stand up a small business to say, if you need your golf cart refitted with aftermarket turn signals, I can do that for you. My neighbor in Sterling does that very thing. And he does that throughout this region of Kansas, which requires a lot of golf carts moving over the roadway on a trailer. Someone could do that here. That's a great idea in a sustainable community, to have the ability to go there and rent out a golf cart. Some state parks do that. That I've gone on vacation and rented golf carts from there. But if we require individuals to register, I would imagine that a shop owner with 7 golf carts would probably need to register those as well.
Sounds like there's probably consensus that we do need to address this and come up with an ordinance that would cover various aspects. Because right now we just kind of need to decide what stipulations or requirements we're going to attach to that. Again, I think in driver's license or valid state issued driver's license, absolutely a must. I really think some form of liability insurance associated with these vehicles is a good idea, just to protect, others on the roadway in case anything does happen. As far as the types of vehicles, I'm inclined to agree with your suggestion, Ed, that we allow all except the ATVs, which I think are fairly dangerous. Registration, also a good idea, with modest fee just to cover our costs going along with that. I don't know what else.
Lights, whatever.
Well, yeah, the safety equipment, lights, turn signals. Yeah. Any other standard safety equipment that would be recommended?
Okay,
So is there a consensus then by the council to have Ed come back to us?
Yes.
In conjunction with working with the city attorney?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you for bringing that to us.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I know we had that discussion several years after the storm, but we still had a lot of people in town, and that wasn't the time to deal with it. We were all being mobile in many ways.
Well, the ordinance, if I may say, in 2007 provided that people could operate these types of vehicles. And in 2007, we needed mobility to help recover from the disaster. So this is just a logical step to bring us into compliance with the state statutes, but in the fashion that's acceptable to our community.
On to item G, Ed, would you like to discuss any of these before we start into them, or any comments?
Well, yes, I would just like to say that this process that we're beginning to bring before council this evening is designed to address the many properties in town that after 5 years still have potentially dangerous foundations remaining behind, as I said, 5 years after the tornado. No steps have been undertaken to improve those lots. I believe they remain behind to the danger of children. Many basements can be a haven for wildlife, to catch trash blown on the wind, to provide a place for snakes to maybe habitat. In beginning a process of this nature, we have multiple projects in town that we will eventually attempt to address. Quite frankly, council, with the chance that in declaring or endorsing the resolution that we have an unsafe or dangerous structure, and that's what I'll call these foundations, we can only attempt to do a small quantity at each phase of this process, in the assumption that if the owners are unable to or unwilling to take care of these foundations, the abatement process would have to be at the city's expense at this time. And it's my belief and the belief of staff that we can't just bring every foundation or unsafe or dangerous property to the council's attention at once. So I'm attempting to have a plan to address these basements in a fashion that I believe that if we're required to, we can afford to abate.
So, council, you have 3 resolutions in front of you that need to be acted on separately if you choose to start the process of abatement.
Well, I would move that we approve resolution number 2012-04.
Second.
Mark seconded it. Erica motion, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried on resolution 2012-04.
I would make a motion that we approve resolution number 2012-05.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2012-05 passed.
I would make a motion we approve resolution 2012-06.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2012-06. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And that concludes our business items for this evening. We have a city attorney report. Nothing? As far as an executive session, attorney-client, Gordon?
Yes, I think we probably 15 to 20 minutes.
15.
15 probably.
Make a motion we go into executive session for attorney-client until 7 p.m.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.